Hello, my name is Mr. Ambrose, and I'm going to be taking you through today some of the information for the higher RMPS SQA revision support. We're going to do a few things today. We're going to look at the content of the exam. We're going to have a look at the study guide, and we're going to look at some tips for the exam and also for your revision too. And we're going to look through one 10-mark question as well, which is one of the suggested structures too. So the learning intentions, we're going to review all the information for the higher RMPS exam. We're going to explore the SQA subject update for higher RMPS, and we're going to understand the study guide provided by the SQA as well. And the success criteria, to review the details of and content of the exam, to consider some tips for the exam, and to understand the content of the study guide as well. You'll need a paper and a pen or a pencil to make some notes while you're doing this, if you want to make notes, or you can just listen to the recording and pause at the right times as well. So, SQA updated guidance of March 2022. So you'll be aware that the SQA have updated their guidance on all the different subjects, and RMPS is no different. We've had an update from the SQA as well. So this might include what will be in the exam. For some courses, SQA have published information on which broad topics, contexts, or content will or will not be in this year's exam. This will help you to plan their revision and focus more on the parts of the course that will be in the exam. You can still use your knowledge of other parts of the course when developing your answers to questions. Some subjects have been given study guides, and that is what we've been given in RMPS. For some courses, SQA have published study guides to help you practice answering exam questions. These give hints and tips on how to approach different types of questions, including how to gain marks. And that's something that we're going to be looking at today. In some topics, this isn't the case for our RMPS. Learner's own note, but study notes. In a small number of courses, you will be allowed to prepare short study notes that you can take into the exam. And that is not the case for higher RMPS. Okay? We are the first two boxes here. We have been given some information on what will be in the exam, and we've been given a study guide as well. So we'll go through those two parts today. So there's some lesson symbols I'd like to keep an eye out for as well. So throughout the lesson, you will see various symbols on the slides to indicate what you should do. Here are symbols which may be used and what they mean. So we've got the listen symbol, we've got the speak and repeat symbol, we've got the read symbol, the write and copy symbol, the correct your work symbol, pause video to complete task symbol, and the watch as well. We will be focusing on listen, read, write and copy, and pause video as well. But that doesn't mean that you can't do the other skills as well. So, quick overview of the higher RMPS course for this session. The exam is 100% of the course assessment. Okay, that means that all of your marks or your grade will be based on the exam. The exam in total is out of 80 marks. Okay. This year, the assignment has been removed. Candidates do not need to complete this part of the course this year. So it's just all on the exam. So when is the exam? The higher RMPS exam is on Monday, the 16th of May, 2022. Now, as you'll be aware, there are two papers. The first paper is from 9 AM until 11:15. And the second paper is from 11:45 to 12:30. So you can see there as well that you'll get a 30-minute break in between the two papers. So what's the content of the exam? Paper 1, there are two sections. Section 1 is world religion. So you will know which world religion you're studying. It could be one of Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Sikhism, or Hinduism. And you should be aware which one that you are going to be answering questions on. Section 2 is morality and belief. And again, there are 6 different sections there too. and you should be aware which one you are answering as well. The time is 2 hours and 15 minutes in total. So section 1, which is your world religion section, will have one 10-mark question and one 20-mark question, and you have to answer both questions. Section 2 is the same. It will have one 10-mark question and one 20-mark question on your topic of morality and belief. Again, you have to answer both questions. Now, a tip here is to make sure that you answer the questions or the sections that you have studied. This is really, really important. Even if you think that you could answer another section, it's really recommended that you answer the section you have studied in class. Okay, paper 2. For paper 2, you only have one section, and that is the religious and philosophical questions. Okay, you have one 20-mark question, and the time is 45 minutes. Again, I've said the same tip here, but it's really important that we emphasize this part. The tip is that you should make sure that you answer the section or the section that you have studied. Okay, again, really, really important, because we shouldn't be looking at other sections and trying to answer questions from those sections. Stick to the questions section that you have studied in class. Okay, so there are two different types of questions in the higher RMPS exam. There is a 10-mark analysis question, or there's actually two in total, and there are 20-mark evaluation questions as well. For the 20-mark evaluation questions, there's 2 in paper 1, and of course there's 1 in paper 2 as well. Now, there is or there will be videos on each of these types of questions in the FVWL RIC YouTube channel. Now, I'll be uploading those. They might be there already, or they might be, if they're not there, they'll be there soon. And in those videos, I'll talk you through some of the 10-mark question structures and how you could possibly answer them. And then also in the 20-mark video, I'll also be talking about how to answer a 20-mark question as well. So keep your eye out for those videos for more guidance on those. So the 10-mark analysis questions, there are 6 marks available for knowledge and understanding, which we'll call KU. And there are 4 marks available for analysis, which I'll show with an A. Now, the suggested time for this is you should aim to spend around 22.5 minutes on each 10-mark question. Now, that's just a rough guide, and that time should also include time for you to look over your answer and make any changes that are needed to that. So make sure, if you aim for 20.5 minutes, make sure that includes time to read over your answer. The 20-mark evaluation questions, obviously these are bigger answers. There are 10 marks available for knowledge and understanding. Now, something that's really important to highlight there is 10 marks available for knowledge and understanding. That's half of the marks. Okay, so make sure you are putting in enough knowledge and understanding. 5 marks are available for analysis. So that's 25% of the marks, and 5 marks are available for evaluation. Again, 25% of the marks. And the suggested time is you should aim to spend around 45 minutes on each 20-mark question. Okay. Again, that should include time for you to read over what you've written, and maybe even at the beginning to make a plan of what you're going to write too. Okay. Okay, so tips for the exam. Now, I don't want to give you too many specific tips, because everyone's going to be doing different sections in the exam. One school's going to be different to another. So I can't give you too much or too many tips for each section. Okay, but I can give you some overall tips that you can take into the exam as well. Read the questions carefully. Okay, it's really important. Make sure you know what the question is asking you, or what it's asking you to do. Okay, so maybe, because of course the exam's a pressurized situation, make sure you read it and you read it again. And you make sure you know what you're asking, or what you're meant to do, what it's asking you to do. A good tip, which I'll go through in the other videos as well, is to underline or highlight important parts of the question. You're allowed to write on the question paper as well as your answer booklet. So if you want to underline particular bits or highlight them, if you have a highlighter, that's a really good tip to do. That's a really good thing to do, because it focuses your attention on what you need to do. So if it's asking you to evaluate non-religious views, or if it's asking you to analyze the relationship between a belief and a practice, make sure you underline those sections of the question, just so you focuses your answer onto those bits. A good tip is to keep on referring back or mirroring the question to make sure that you are on point. Really good tip as well. So asking you to, again, analyze a relationship between a belief and a practice, then you can say, keep on using the word relationship, and keep on using the phrases, the belief and the practice as well. If it's asking you to evaluate the importance of something, then keep on saying, I think this is important, or this is important because, okay, because that's showing you that you're going to be focused and you're answering the question. Okay. As I said before, time allocation for each question should include time for you to read over your answer if you can. Okay. If you're running out of time, obviously, and you need to finish off what you're writing, that's what takes the priority. But if you do have time at the end, take time to read over your answer and make sure that you're happy with everything you have written. But be aware not to overthink some of the things you've written. Okay, if you've written a big paragraph and you're not sure, and you cross it out, you might lose those points. So just don't overthink it as well. Make sure that you're aware of what you're saying, and your answer's focused and relevant to what the question's asking. Okay. One good tip as well is you can answer the questions in any order. Obviously, you have to answer all the questions in paper 1 before doing paper 2 because they're at different times. But if you want to, for example, do your 20-mark question first and then a 10-mark question for world religion, that's fine. If you want to do both 20-mark questions first and then your 2 10-mark questions, that's fine as well. Okay, you don't have to do it in any order. That might be a good tip if you, for example, have a question that you're not sure about, but the second question you quite like. Then do the second question first, come back to the first question. Don't spend time worrying, thinking, I've got to answer this question first. You don't, okay? Come back to it. Answer the questions first that you think would be, that you would like to, okay? It's up to you. Okay, good tip as well is to write a short plan at the top of your answer to help you think about what you're going to write, okay? So if you ask a question about religious views on capital punishment, then you could say a Christian view, paragraph 1, an Islamic view, paragraph 2, a Buddhist view, paragraph 3, or whatever, however you're going to structure the answer. Okay. How you structure the answer is up to you as well. There's lots of different ways to structure an answer. If you have a structure in mind, then you can plan out what you're going to write for each section. Okay, that'll make your thinking a lot clearer. And the last tip just for me is deep breaths. You've got this. Okay, so when you've read the questions, deep breaths. The SQA questions are not there to be tricks or anything like that. They're meant to allow you to show what you understand and show the skills as well. Okay, there shouldn't be any trick questions at all. That the SQA want you to do well. Okay, so read the exam, read the questions, deep breaths, and have a think about what you've learned, what knowledge, analysis, and evaluation you can lean on that you've learned previously. Okay. Okay, so the study guide. The SQA have published a study guide for higher RMPS candidates, okay, and it's available at that link there. Now, you won't be able to click on that link because it's on the video. I will ask for that link to be put into the comments for you to click on. But it is available on, if you just search higher RMPS SQA, it'll come up, and if you click on that link, it'll be on one of the options there. I believe it says something like study guides for candidates or something like that. Okay? It's obvious where it is on the page. So the guide includes an overview of the exam, suggested structures for types of questions, an overview of content that has been removed for the session, and exam technique guidance as well. And we're going to go through all of that. I'm not going to go through everything, not going to go through all the detail. I'm just going to give you an overview of what it says. You can read it in a bit more detail at that link there. So in the study guide, it starts with paper 1, part 1, which is the world religions. Okay, so it gives you a few tips and suggestions about how to structure answers. I'm going to look at one of those structures in a moment's time. Okay, this is what it says in the study guide. If you are asked to analyze the relationship between 2 beliefs, 2 practices, or a belief and a practice, make sure that you give clear knowledge and understanding, KU, points for the belief and or practice identified in the question. You must also clearly explain the ways in which they are linked. Use the wording from the question to help you do this. Okay. So an example, so my class study Islam, so it could be, what is the link between beliefs about God and beliefs about humans? Okay, that would be two beliefs. Or it could be analyze the relationship between beliefs about Muhammad and living according to the 5 pillars of Islam. Okay, that would be asking you to show the link between the two, the relationship between the two. Okay. So it's important that you give clear knowledge and understanding on both of those things, okay, that you're asked to do. Okay. And you've got to show how they're linked as well. That's what the question's asking you to do. Okay, so an example of a good structure for this type of 10-mark question would be paragraph 1, make 3 KU points from the first belief and or practice. Paragraph 2, make 3 KU points for the second belief and or practice. Paragraph 3, make 4 analysis points explaining the relationship between the two. Okay, so this is one suggested structure of how you can do this. Okay, there's lots of other different structures. You don't have to structure it like this. Okay, but it's nice to have a few different options for what structures you're going to use. Okay, this is one structure. Now I'm going to give you an example of what this structure might look like. Okay, next slide. This answer has 2 parts. This is part 1, and this part 2 is on the next slide. Okay, so this is the complete answer. Okay, now this question is on Judaism. You might not be studying Judaism in your course. You might be studying another world religion, and you might not know that much about Judaism. Okay, so just assume here that everything that is in this is correct. Okay, it's accurate, it's detailed, okay, and it's relevant. The question. If you're not sure, then just assume that it's all accurate. Now, what I want you to do is, in this part here, I want you to go through the answer. The only skills in this part of the answer are KU marks, knowledge and standard marks. There's no analysis. Okay, so this is a 10-mark question, so there's 6 KU marks available and 4 analysis. Okay, and the question is, analyze the relationship between Jewish beliefs about God and the covenant. Okay, so it's asking the relationship between 2 different beliefs there. Okay, so I'll read this out, and then after I've read it out, I'd like to pause the video and think about where you would give the KU marks for this part of the answer. Okay, so analyze the relationship between Jewish beliefs about God and the covenant. 10 marks. So this is answer part 1. One Jewish belief about God is that He is omnipotent, which means He is all-powerful. Another Jewish belief about God is that He is omniscient, which means He is all-knowing. Jews also believe that God is the creator of life, as exemplified in the Torah, Genesis 1. Quote, and God created man in His image. In the image of God He created him. Male and female He created him. End quote. Finally, Jews believe that God is omnipresent, which means He is everywhere and watches all over humanity. Over all of humanity. Jews believe that the covenant is an agreement between the Jewish people and God. The first covenant is with Abraham, and the second covenant is with Moses. According to the Abrahamic covenant, God offered protection and lands to Abraham and his descendants that were to follow the path of God. According to the Mosaic covenant, the 10 commandments given to Moses by God on Mount Sinai after he helped free the Israelites to escape Egypt. Okay. So pause the video here, have a think about where you would give the KU marks here. How many KU marks would you give and where would you give it? Okay, so this is part 2 of the answer. Now there is analysis and KU in here. Okay, we'll go through the answers of part 1 in a moment. Okay, we'll just want to give you an overview of all of the answer. So this is answer part 2. So this is the same part of the answer, just couldn't fit on one slide. Okay, so again, this is the same answer. This is just the second part. The relationship between beliefs about God and the covenant are clear for the Jewish people even today. During Passover, the Jewish people remember what God did to help Moses free the Israelites from Egypt by parting the Red Sea, and as a result, God is celebrated during this time. The Mosaic covenant is also related to beliefs about God, as Jews see God as all-knowing, and by giving the Jewish people the Ten Commandments, it showed that he was giving them the opportunity to follow the path of God to ensure that they do the right thing at all times. The relationship between God and the Abrahamic covenant is that God has the obligation to keep Abraham's descendants as God's chosen people and to continue to be their God. And to date, Jewish boys take part in the Brit Milah ceremony, where newborn boys are circumcised and is part of the covenant when God asked Abraham to remove his foreskin and the foreskin of all Jewish boys after him. Okay, so again, pause the video here and think about where you would give analysis marks here and where you would give a KU mark as well. Okay, so here's the answers, or where the marks lie for part 1. Okay, so as you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 KU marks in this first bit. Okay, so the one Jewish belief about God is that he is omnipotent, which means all powerful. That's a KU mark. Okay, again, the second sentence of the Jewish belief about God is that he is omniscient, which means he is all knowing. That's a KU mark as well, because you're giving detailed facts that are relevant to the question. Talk about beliefs about God. Jews also believe that God is the creator of life, as exemplified in the Torah, Genesis 1. Okay, and there's a quote there too, and because it's a relevant quote, you get a KU mark. Finally, Jews believe that God is omnipresent, which means he is everywhere and watches over humanity. Again, another KU mark. Okay, so remember as well here, you can't just say, for example, finally Jews believe that God is omnipresent. You have to explain what that means as well to get the KU mark. Okay, so you have to give the detail. Okay, where's the KU mark in the second paragraph? So now we're talking about the beliefs about the covenant. Jews believe that the covenant is an agreement between the Jewish people and God. KU mark. The first covenant is with Abraham, and the second covenant is with Moses. According to the Abrahamic covenant, God offered protection and land to Abraham and his descendants, but were to follow the path of God. That's KU mark as well. According to the Mosaic covenant, the Ten Commandments given to Moses by God on Mount Sinai after he helped free the Israelites to escape Egypt, again, KU mark there. Okay, so the first part there, in the first paragraph, you've given the candidate's given KU marks about beliefs by God. In the second section, they've got KU marks to talk about the covenants. Okay, so they haven't done any analysis yet. That is just all KU. Okay. Okay. So as you can see here, there are a couple of analysis marks as well. Okay, so this person has said the relationship between beliefs about God and the covenant are clear for the Jewish people even today. During Passover, the Jewish people remember what God did to help Moses free the Israelites from Egypt by parting the Red Sea. As a result, God is celebrated during this time. So again, that's an analysis mark because you're showing the relationship between the two, and you're showing what Jewish people do because of that relationship. The Mosaic covenant is also related to beliefs about God, as Jews see God as all-knowing, and by giving the Jewish people the Ten Commandments, it shows that he was giving them the opportunity to follow the path of God to ensure that they do the right thing at all times. Again, you explain the relationship between the two. That's an analysis mark. Okay, the next section. The relationship between God and the Abrahamic covenant is that God has the obligation to keep Abraham's descendants as God's chosen people and to continue to be their God. And to date, Jewish boys will take part in the Brit Milah ceremony, where newborn boys are circumcised. Okay, so that's a KU mark because you again given some information about the covenant and what actually is contained there. The analysis comes after that and is part of the covenant when God asked Abraham to remove his foreskin and the foreskin of all Jewish boys after him. So again, that's showing a consequence of that belief. Okay, that's what Jews do because of that belief about the covenant. Okay, so in total, there there were 8 KU marks and 3 analysis marks. However, remember, you can only get a maximum of 6 KU marks. Okay, so this candidate got 6 out of 6 for KU and 3 out of 4 for analysis. That was 9 out of 10. Okay, so a couple of things to think about here that kind of stood out to me was that there's lots of KU marks available for stating a belief and kind of giving a short explanation. That should be enough for a KU mark. But also make sure that you are, if this what you've written here takes more than 22.5 minutes, there's a potential to sort of shorten down the KU because this person's overshot and gone 8 KU marks. Okay, that's 2 things that you could think about as well. But of course, it's better to overshoot and do too many KU marks than not enough. So that's something to think about. Okay, so that was a structure of all the KU in the first 2 paragraphs and all the analysis in the second part. Okay, that's one way that you could structure your answer. And one thing for you to think about would be to go away and think about what world religion you're studying, if it's Judaism or if it's another world religion. Think about how you could structure an answer like this and if it would suit you to answer a question like this. Okay. Okay, so what else is included in the study guide? There are also some tips and suggestions about how to structure 20 mark answers as well. So for the 20 mark question, it is important that you read the question carefully. As we said before, this is really, really important. And identify which beliefs and or practices are being asked to analyse and evaluate, that you're being asked to analyse and evaluate. Take note of the word used in the question and use it in your response. For example, significance, relevance, importance. So if you're asked to analyse the significance of something, make sure that you are reflecting that in your answer. Okay, and that'll keep you. Make sure you're saying this is significant because, okay, or I think this is significant because if you're evaluating. An example of a good structure for the 20 mark question would be to include the following. Okay, so this is again another suggested structure. 3 KU points for the belief and or practice, 2 analysis points focusing on either of the consequences, implications, or purpose of the belief and or practice, and then 2 evaluation points using the wording of the question. Personal evaluation is encouraged, for example, I think this is significant because, okay. So that would be, if that was 1 paragraph, that's 7 marks in total. So if you did that 3 times, that would get you up to 21. So that would, again, overshoot 20 marks in the question. So that's one potential way of doing that. I haven't got an example answer for you here, but if you look at the Understanding Standards website and the SQA website, they have some examples there. And I will link you to that at the end of the video. Okay, so it's still on paper 1, but this time it's part 2. Okay, so the morality and belief. This section of the study guide is a review of what parts of the course have been removed and will not be assessed in the 2022 exam. Okay, so there's all these parts here at the bottom, all these things in each bullet point will not be in the exam. Okay, so they will not ask you about this. It's still possible, if you wanted, to talk about this if it was relevant. Okay, it's the question. Okay, so you can still mention these things and get marks, but make sure it's relevant to what the question is asking you to do. Okay, so for morality and justice, there will be no cause of crime. There will not be any questions about environmental influences or psychological factors. If you're doing morality and relationships, there won't be any sections on marriage, whether that's arranged marriage, forced marriage, same-sex marriage, or divorce. Part C, if you're looking at morality, environment, and global issues, there won't be anything on environmental issues, climate change, depletion of resources, and biodiversity. If you're doing morality, medicine, and the human body, there won't be any questions on use. There won't be any questions on use of embryos, reproductive, therapeutic, or research. Okay. And if you're doing morality and conflict, there won't be any questions on modern armaments, weapons of mass destruction, conventional weapons, and smart weapons. So anything listed here will not be assessed, will not be in the exam. Okay. Again, as I said before, you can still talk about these things if they're relevant to the question. Okay, but you won't be expected to, and you won't be asked questions on it as well. Okay, so this section of the study guide also covers some tips on answering questions in this part of the exam. So again, it says read the question carefully. Be sure that you know what it is you're asking. Okay. Be clear on which religious and or non-religious responses you will use in your answer. Okay, so if you are asked about religious responses to something, have a think about which religious responses you want to talk about. If it's non-religious, again, think about if you want to, which ones you want to talk about, which non-religious views you want to talk about. You might be asked there, it seems to suggest that you could be asked about religious and non-religious responses. So again, you need to think about which of both you need to answer, you need to talk about in your answer. If it's asked both, you do need to talk about both, not just one. Okay. Be specific which religions, a religious or non-religious group you're referring to. For example, do not say some people believe X. Instead say some Buddhists believe, okay, or some humanists believe. Okay, so make sure you're specific about what you're saying. If you're not specific, you won't get the mark there. And the final suggestion is to write a short plan on what you're going to write. This will help you structure your answer properly and help with time management as well. Okay, so have a think about what you want to write in each paragraph, and that'll help you with your thinking and help you with the structure and time management as well. Okay, so paper 2, religious and philosophical questions. Now this is, as we said before, you get one question, one 20-mark question on this, and you've got 45 minutes. Okay, so you should know which section you are going to be talking about, which section you're going to answer. Again, please make sure you stick to the section that you have studied in class. So this section also covers some tips on answering the question in this part of the exam. There is only one question in this section, so there's only one question per part. Okay, make sure you choose the part that you have studied in class and read the question carefully. Make sure that you use all of the skills asked for in the question. So it's a 20-mark question, so it will be KU, analysis, and evaluation. Okay. Remember, if you only have KU in your answer, you can only get a maximum of 8 out of 20. You've got to have analysis and evaluation as well. Be aware of your timing. You have 45 minutes to answer one 20-mark question. That includes reading over, and if you want to make a plan at the beginning as well. Okay, exam technique advice. So this is the last part of the study guide. This section also covers some general tips for the exam as well. So make sure your KU is relevant to the question. Okay, if it's asking you about, for example, religious views, you will only get marks for stating religious views. Okay, you only get KU marks for that. If you are, if it's asked to talk about a particular belief, okay, make sure your KU is focused on that as well. Okay, so quotations. This is a really handy thing to know as well. If you're using a quotation, make sure you put where that quotation is from. For example, Jews would use the teaching, thou shalt not kill, would not get a KU mark. Okay, that quote there, you have to tell us where that quote is from. So instead, you should say, Jews would use the teaching from the Torah, thou shalt not kill. That would get a KU mark. You don't necessarily have to put which part the Torah is from, but if you know, then you can put it down. You wouldn't lose any marks for that, for example. Okay? But you would get a mark for saying, from the Torah, thou shalt not kill. So make sure you put that in. Evaluation is not just agreeing or disagreeing or stating strengths and weaknesses. Okay? You must make a judgment on the question. Okay, so if the question is asking you, how far do you agree? Make sure you reflect that. If your question is asking to evaluate the significance of something, make sure you reflect that. Okay, you'll make a judgment on the significance of something. So make sure you reflect that as well. If it's asking you, for example, in paper 2, how persuasive are religious arguments for the existence of God, or how persuasive are scientific explanations for the origins of the universe, make sure you reflect that, thinking about how persuasive you find it as well. Okay. So again, that links back to reading the question carefully. Okay, some revision suggestions so far. These are just things that might help you prepare for the exam properly. Make sure you're comfortable with all the beliefs and practices in your chosen world religion. Okay, so that should be listed. Your teacher might provide you a list of that. It's also listed on the RMPS higher documents as well. So make sure you understand the links and relationship between them, which is the analysis as well. can also revise any implications or impacts that beliefs or practice have too, because that's all analysis as well. But it's really important. You might get asked a question about the relationship between a specific belief and a specific practice, for example. So you have to know the relationship between those two things. You'll need to know the relationship between them all. A really good tip is to look over some example answers, see where the KU analysis and evaluation marks are given. Okay, these are available again on the Understanding Standards website. There are a few there for you to have a look at. Your teacher might have provided you with a few. You might mark some of your friends' work, or you might get some feedback from other people as well. Be aware of where you can get your KU analysis evaluation marks as well. Okay? Revisit any answer that you have written previously. So if you did an answer at the beginning of the year, say a 10-mark or 20-mark question, then have a look at that. Think about, could you or how could you improve them? Can you improve them, or how could you improve them? So maybe you could edit them to improve them as well. That would be a good exercise for you to do too. Always good suggestion to practice some timed answers. Okay, so if you have time in your revision, think about, right, if I got this question, what would I write? And then practice writing it out. If it's a 10-mark question, 22.5 minutes. Okay, if it's a 20-mark question, then 45 minutes. Practice that, because that's really important. You don't want to run out of time and only miss out a bit part of your essay, okay, and lose marks. Really important to practice that too. Okay, so next steps as well. Good idea to review the slideshow and the notes you have made. So if you've written down things, if you've paused the video, have a look through the notes as well of what you've made. Take a look at some example answers. And again, that's the Understanding Standards website there as well. You can get some marked scripts. And then read through the study guide in detail. Okay, so this might be printed off for you, or it might, or not. So it's available on the RMPS SQA page. Okay, have a read through that in detail as well. It's all been reviewed here, but there's a bit more detail in the actual study guide. And then the next thing, I suppose, is to begin planning your revision. Okay, you should know what works well for you in terms of revising. If it's revising, straight from the notes, or if it's highlighting, or if it's practicing, or if it's reading over example answers, mind maps, anything at all, whatever works for you, you should begin planning your revision now. Keep in mind the date for the exam, and make sure you've planned enough revision time before that too. And all I have to say after that is good luck, and thanks for listening.